Is it better to invest your extra cash, or is it better to pay off your house? With the mortgage rates rising higher, this is a question that needs more attention. I'm Joseph, your engineer at work, here to help you on your way to success. And using my calculations, I'm going to reverse engineer this question right now, so you don't have to waste thousands of dollars listening to the wrong advice and going down the wrong path. Now, before we get started, there's 3 questions we have to address. First, do you have any other loans that have high interest rates, like credit cards or car payments? If so, I recommend paying those off first before tackling your mortgage. Second, do you have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund? Because if you don't, you might want to save this video and then come back to it, because if anything happens in your life right now, like a medical emergency, family crisis, or home repair, all of that money that you put towards investments or towards your mortgage will just be for nothing and you can lose everything. Third, are you currently matching your employer's 401k and investing a total of 15% of your gross annual income? Because if you're not, I would recommend doing that before you tackle this question. Okay, now since we've got that out of the way, let's dive into it. First, we're going to calculate what happens if you pay off your mortgage early, or if you invest that extra cash instead. And for this, I'm not going to just use one scenario. I'm going to use 8 different scenarios to give us a full perspective. So for this first scenario, let's say we have a 30-year loan on a $250,000 home at a 2.7% interest rate, which is very similar to what the rates were during the pandemic. And let's say that we have $100 extra per month that we can put either towards the mortgage or investing in the stock market. So plugging in this information, you'll see that we save $16,547 in interest, and we'll save 4 years of not having to make payments on this mortgage. Now, had I invested that $100 per month instead of putting it towards the mortgage, and let's say that I did that for 30 years, and I got a return close to the S&P 500 historical rate of 10%, minus 3% for inflation, I would have a grand total of $116,945 in my investments. So it seems that in this case, it would be better to invest my money into the stock market rather than put it towards my mortgage. However, remember that we saved 4 years because we paid off our mortgage early. So if we take the same amount of money that we'd be spending for those 4 years towards our payments on the mortgage, and we invested that into the stock market, that would be $1,014 per month for 4 years. Now I'm going to also add $100 extra onto that, because in the other scenario, I was adding $100 every month for the entire duration of the mortgage. So to do the same thing here, I'm going to be tacking on that extra $100. So instead of being $1,014, it'll be $1,114 per month that I'll be investing. So that'll give us a grand total of $61,234 that we'll have at the end of those 4 years had we invested that extra money into the stock market. So in this scenario, it seems that even though we would have gotten that much money by investing for those 4 years, it still would be better for us if we had invested the $100 initially for the duration of the entire 30-year loan. In the long run, this would have saved us $55,711. Now for the second scenario, we're going to take the same house, but this time at a 7.5% interest rate, which is pretty similar to our market today. Now using the same calculations, we'll save $75,372 in interest and 5 years that we don't have to make mortgage payments. So for those 5 years, if we take the $1,748 that we normally would have been paying towards our mortgage and we invest that in the stock market, plus adding on that extra $100 that we would have invested, we would have a grand total of $131,570 in the stock market, which is more than $116,945. So in this scenario, it seems that we would be better off paying off our mortgage early. But is this the case for larger homes? Well, let's take a look. Let's change the home value from $250,000 to $500,000. So keeping the same 30-year loan at a 2.7% interest rate, we will save $17,871 in interest plus 2 years of payments that we would have been making towards the mortgage. Now, if we take the $2,028 that we normally would have paid towards the mortgage per month and add the $100 that we would have invested, we estimate a $54,535 return. So the $100 per month that we put towards the $500,000 home didn't save us quite as much as money as whenever we put it towards the $250,000 home, because it only cut off 2 years of our loan instead of 4 years that we could have invested the extra payments into the stock market. Now again, if we invested the $100 for the duration of the entire 30 years, we would get $116,945, which is a lot more than $54,535. So again, in the scenario, it seems like you're better off investing. You save about $62,000 doing so. And again, using the 7.5% interest rate and the $100 per month towards our mortgage, we'll shave off about 3 years of our mortgage payments. And that'll save us about $85,441 in interest. Then, if we take the $3,496 that we would have been paying per month towards our mortgage, and we add the additional $100 on there, and then invest that for 3 years, we get about $143,126 total. So again, compare that to the $116,945. And you'll see that it's better to pay the mortgage off in this case. Okay, so we can see that when the interest rate is high, it's better to pay off the loan. But when it's lower, it's better to invest. But what about 15-year loans? Let's take a look. We'll work with the same scenario at a 2.7% interest rate, but this time a 15-year loan for the $250,000 home. If we take the $100 per month and we put it towards the mortgage, we save $3,882 and 1 year of mortgage payments. Now, if we invest that payment of $1,691 for the last year, plus the $100 that we would have invested, that gives us a nice return of $22,173. Now, if we invest the $100 instead of putting it towards our mortgage for the 15 years, then that'll give us a return of $31,110. So even though you're not losing a lot of money, it seems like in this case, it's still a better option to invest. You save about $9,000 doing so. Now, if we took the $250,000 home at a 7.5% interest rate and we apply the $100 per month towards the mortgage, we save about $13,868 in interest and 1 year in our mortgage payments. So if we take that last year of $2,318 of payment per month that we would have been spending and we put it towards investments, plus the $100 that we normally would invest, that would give us $29,936 in investments. Now compare that to the $31,110 and you'll see that we're really not that far off in this scenario. So whether we invest the $100 or if we put it towards our mortgage, it doesn't seem to really matter in this scenario. Now for the scenario of the $500,000 home at a 2.7% interest rate on a 15-year loan, we save about $4,028 and half a year in mortgage payments. So if we take the $3,381 that we normally would pay in our mortgage payments for that last half year and we invest it with the additional $100 that we normally would invest, we would roughly get $21,192 at the end of that year. Now compare that to the $31,110 had you invested the $100 from the get-go. Okay, same situation with the 7.5% interest rate. By putting the $100 towards our mortgage, we save $14,508 and half a year in mortgage payments. Now if we take the mortgage payment of $4,635 that we normally would pay, plus the $100 that we would normally invest, and we invest that for that half year, we would roughly get $28,827, which that is pretty close to $31,110. So in this scenario, it doesn't really seem to matter whether we put the $100 towards our mortgage or if we put it towards our investments. Okay, so I think we're seeing a pattern here. The higher interest rates means that it's probably okay to pay off the loan, and lower interest rates probably means it's okay to invest. So I decided to take this further and I put $200 towards the mortgage and towards investments rather than $100. So here you can see a chart that shows the savings had you invested your money from the get-go rather than putting it towards your mortgage. And you can see on this chart that around 6.4%, all of the points seem to converge. So it's probably safe to say that between 6.4% and 6.5%, at least for these scenarios, it's a good idea to be putting your money towards your mortgage. Now, having said all that and seeing all the data, there's a couple of points you need to consider first before deciding to invest. So let's talk about those. First, taxes. Remember that when you invest, there's always taxes that are pulled out unless you throw it into a Roth IRA or into an HSA or a Roth 401k and so forth. So I recommend that if you are going to invest into something that is tax-free. Just keep in mind that whenever you pull it out, you're going to be taxed, and that'll drop you significantly lower than the savings in some situations than what you would have gotten back on your mortgage. Now, on the other hand, when you pay interest on a mortgage, the government gives you an itemized deduction of that amount for that year in taxes. So that's really nice. Now, second, keep in mind that investing is a risk, whereas paying off your mortgage is very secure. Whatever you pay back to your mortgage, you definitely will get those cost savings. Whereas when you invest, if you don't know what you're investing into, you could very well lose your money. Now, I based all of these investments off of the S&P historical average of 10%, minus 3% for inflation. So if that isn't the case, then you won't be making as much money as we calculated in these investments. So while investing is a risk, paying off your mortgage creates peace of mind. Dave Ramsey understands this principle, and that's why he always promotes to pay off your home. He further goes on to say that surveys show that paying off your home is one of the keys to becoming a millionaire. After you pay off your mortgage, that's hard cash in your pocket. Third, recognize that life is not predictable. So if you do have your money tied up in investments and you have a life crisis that happens, such as like losing your job or a medical emergency, if we're in the middle of an economic downturn, you're going to have to pull those funds out at a loss. So just keep that in mind. Again, it's very risky to have your funds tied up in investments. However, if you pay off your mortgage, you have cash flow coming in that usually serves as a very good cushion against all of these family emergencies and other problems that can arise. So again, the mortgage is safer, it's more secure. If you don't want risk, go with the mortgage. Fourth, interest rates drop. So if you can, refinance your home at a lower interest rate when the time permits. And you want to move, if you can afford it, to a 15-year loan. A 15-year loan, as you can see, saves you way more money than if you go towards a 30-year loan. When my wife and I switched to a 15-year loan, we saved nearly $260,000 in interest. So if you can afford it and interest rates are tolerable, then I would suggest going to a 15-year loan. Furthermore, keep in mind that banks will give you a lower interest rate if you go to a 15-year loan rather than a 30-year loan. Fifth, if you're focused on your mortgage and paying it off early, then see if you can change your payment schedule to bi-weekly instead of monthly. That can actually save you 1 month of payments per year, and that adds up quickly. Sixth, another way to pay off a mortgage is to invest your money first and then use that money, pull it out of investments, and then pay your mortgage down with that money. You can do that. Again, there is risk associated with that, so just keep that in mind. So in summary, I'm going to list 4 optimal conditions for investing your money and 4 optimal conditions for paying off your mortgage. Okay, so as far as investing goes, the first optimal condition is that you're young. Preferably, you want to be younger than 45 years old because you have time for those investments to grow and to make you money, right? So when you're younger, you can tolerate more risk. Once you get above 45 or so, you're a little less risk tolerant. Second, if you have a low interest rate on your home, you can move more towards investing that extra cash. Third, make sure you're a good investor, know what you're getting into, research all of your investments, make sure you don't just jump in something just because you hear about it. And fourth, if you prefer risk rather than peace of mind, then go that route of investment. You can make a lot of money that way as long as you're willing to tolerate the risk. Now, as far as optimal conditions for paying off your mortgage, first, if you're older than 45, it's probably best to move towards paying off your mortgage. If you're younger than 45, you can also pay off your mortgage, but especially if you're older than 45, definitely recommend moving towards the mortgage. Second, if you have a high interest rate on your loan, you want to move towards paying off your mortgage. Third, if you're not good at investing, move towards the mortgage. It's safer that way, and that is hard savings in your pocket with no risk. And fourth, if you think peace of mind is most important to you, then go towards the mortgage. So for me, I have a low interest rate with a 15-year loan. But I am also moving towards paying off the mortgage instead of investing because for me, I like peace of mind. So there you go, check that box, reverse engineered. Hopefully I didn't lose you in all the calculations. So with that being said, I hope that you got something out of this. If you did, please subscribe and I will see you guys next time.